Very busy day, event-wise, all over Scotland it seems. So thank you all for coming. Thank you Richard for coming, and Lisa for being our host tonight. So just to let you guys know, we're not expecting any fire drills, so if the alarm does go off, drop everything and go out the door. If you do need to grab a beer or two, I'm sure that's fine, because it's cold outside. Just to tell you a bit about Startup Grind, we are all over the world, and it is a global community focused on entrepreneurship and sharing information, sharing knowledge, and helping startup communities. I think we're at over 300 chapters now and growing, which is all thanks to the likes of you guys coming along to our events. So, without further ado, there you go.
That's brilliant, thank you Marlene. So just a couple of things I'd like to add. Very social, so please join in the conversation. We're on @StartupGrindSEO on Twitter. We're also on LinkedIn and Facebook, so spread the word. And what I would say as well is we're going to have a fantastic interview tonight. We've got a great guest for you who I'll introduce in a second. But this is a conversation, so it's very informal. If anyone wants to ask a question during the talk, just raise your hand and I'll bring you into the conversation because we want to do that. So I'll sit back down now. But without further ado, I'm very excited to introduce tonight Richard Cooper. I'm not going to steal his thunder, so this is just a short intro, but Richard is a CEO designate and co-founder of Novosound. And as you might have seen from some of my communications before tonight's event, they announced last week that they've just raised 1.5 million in their seed round, which is excellent, and we're going to hear a bit more about that later on. Richard was also one of the co-founders of Cascade Technologies and had a very successful exit from that, so we're going to hear the story and the journey of how that came about. He's a consultant, he's quite a busy and prolific angel investor, and understand as well, and a mentor to several startups. And what Richard told me when we met, which I found fascinating, he's had a 40-year apprenticeship, is how he described it. So we're going to hear all about that, which I think is excellent. So thank you, Richard. But just to start off with, we always like to hear the personal story and the journey as well. So can you maybe just start off, you tell us a bit about growing up and your early years. Did you come from an entrepreneurial family background or influencers?
Okay, yes. Do I need to use this or?
It should be on.
So yes, I did come from a slightly entrepreneurial background. My father was a GP, and my mother ran a few.
Just flick it on.
What's that? And my mother, there we go. And my mother ran kind of shops occasionally, various different things. And I suppose in my early years I got involved in cars. That's my passion and my addiction. And I used to fund my university by selling second-hand cars. We used to buy them on a Friday night. Buy them on a Wednesday night out at the Evening Times in Glasgow, and then polish them and sell them on a Friday night in the Evening Times. So you had to get them in the advert. It was printed adverts at that time. So you had to get them printed into the print on a Thursday lunchtime. So you had to know what you'd bought and then got them sold again. So that helped fund university, and there were a few friends doing that. And then that got me involved in some motorsport in the early days, which I know I'm probably racing on here, but it makes you not even consider if you have to go and travel globally. We used to think nothing when we were at university of shooting down to Brands Hatch in south of London to race on a Saturday and a Sunday, and then drive back up on a Sunday night and get into the house for 4 in the morning and then go to uni at 9 o'clock on the Monday morning. And I think that was the kind of thing that kind of drove you. So you just had to know that you had to drive.
Yeah, you told me that you didn't need to be in one place all the time. You were all around and you were on the go.
Yeah, usually on the go somewhere.
And I was interested in that as well, because motorsport is, I guess, you have to have an approach to risk.
Yes,
to be involved in that kind of thing.
I always say you're not driving fast enough unless you're spinning off. And it's a bit the same as growing a company. You're going to make some mistakes, and it's how you recover from those mistakes. That's what sorts the men out from the boys. And there's a lot of lessons from the motorsport side. And I have to say, I stopped doing competitive motorsport where I was driving in 1977. I wasn't particularly successful at it because I'm the wrong weight. I'm not like a jockey, so it probably wasn't that good.
But that was something that you carried on during your early career in at university?
Yes.
Was
yes.
it? Yeah. And then, can you tell us a bit about your early career? You know, how you started out
So
your studies?
I took a degree in manufacturing engineering at Strathclyde University, and it was a very unusual degree. There was only 5 Europeans on that course. I think it was four British and 1 guy from Portugal, and the rest were from Korea. And it's no surprise that the Korean manufacturing base is huge, because they invested a fortune in sending people to a top university, Strathclyde, at that time, to do manufacturing engineering. I did it because I wasn't very good at the maths piece. So you could do engineering, but it was more soft skills. There was a bit of accountancy and marketing, so it was that. But you also got a good grounding in how to make stuff. And that really helped me when I started moving into my career proper.
And did you go into like a graduate programme or large corporate?
I joined Howden in Glasgow in 1980, and I did a graduate apprenticeship. And interestingly enough, one of the things I got to do at that time was to go into the quality department. And that was ideal, because it meant that you saw every part of the business and their suppliers' businesses. So you got to do internal audits and external audits. So you got to see lots of different businesses from the inside. It wasn't that exciting. I remember spending a day auditing a spring manufacturing company, and you wouldn't really realise how much there is to know about springs. And these were for components for Heysham and Torness nuclear power stations. But that's what we were making at the time in the company. And I was in that company for 7 years, and during that time, I got to the point where I was running a factory of 150 people at the age of 26. And that was, we were building at the time things like the boring machines for the Channel Tunnel, wind turbines, which were built in California before it was fashionable. And that kind of set the scene for my future career, I think.
And how did you find that at, a relatively young age, leading a large team, and obviously people of all different age groups, I would think? Quite tough?
I found it probably was tough, but I think you're ignorant to how tough it probably should have been, because it was just the norm.
And what did you learn from that?
The company was a very interesting company because they gave you responsibility that you wouldn't dream of. So I get a bit frustrated now when I look at 30-year-olds that I work with who don't have any of that level of experience, and they really should have at that age. If you haven't had good, heavy experience at an early age, you might struggle to really push you on.
And what about the balance of that? Because there's getting experience, but did you have in your early career, good role models or people that you were able to learn from?
So when I was in Howden, I had a tremendous boss, no relation but the same name as me, and he was fantastic. He taught me about PLs, balance sheets, and that was really good. And there was also, so he eventually became chairman of Cascade Technologies, which was very useful at the time. But that was after a 20-year break of not really seeing him. But I also learned from some of the older hands in that company. There was the HR director who had been negotiating with the trade unions, and we'd been sitting there, and he used to say to me, if I start fiddling with my pipe, because you could smoke it those days, if I start fiddling with my pipe, it's because I'm trying to think, don't say anything. See, it was just his way of creating a delay tactic while he messed about with his tobacco.
Okay, fascinating. And that wasn't the only kind of large corporate that you worked for. You worked for a few others before you went on to go into startups. But how did you find that transition change of going from, I guess, you know, in particularly in manufacturing, large, probably unionised environments, going into kind of a startup environment? It must have been quite a step change.
So, so I had, I worked for a large British-based engineering company, one of the best companies in the world, Rolls-Royce, and I was responsible for gas turbine repair and overhaul. So again, the motorsport thing, it was like having the best garage you could ever have, because we had 300 people fixing gas turbines, and we used to know the engines by name, because you know if they didn't come back from the test beds right, it cost you another £4,000 to fix it and get it back to the test beds. So you tended to know which ones were the good ones and the bad ones. And this was at the time when Ryanair only had 3 engines in one aircraft, so it was very important that their aircraft, their engine was working, and they had very small budgets. So that was.
That was a large corporate.
That was a large corporate, and then I worked for an American non-unionised company making forklift trucks. So that was non-union. So I'd been through the big unionised organisation and the non-unionised organisations. I kind of tended to understand how to deal with these organisations. When I was at Rolls-Royce, we did a massive change in how we manufactured or remanufactured engines, and I used to sit with the convener, trade union convener, every morning for a coffee and discuss the facts of life with them about if we didn't do what we were trying to do, we wouldn't be there. And I think it turned out to be one of the most efficient plants that Rolls-Royce had, and it then transferred to in Shinnon near Glasgow Airport in its new guise. Okay. Or that wouldn't have happened, that would have closed.
Is there any tips around that from leading teams or growing teams that you'd like to share?
Leading teams, you just got to pick the best people you can possibly can, preferably people better than yourself. That wouldn't be difficult in my case. There's lots of very good engineers out there. Some of them don't really want to get involved in leadership. One chap that I did pull through the engineering ranks at Rolls-Royce now runs a significant part of Rolls-Royce's business. And he's been VP of Canada, and he's been VP in America, and a really, really good guy. And I remember just taking him and chatting to him, saying, do you want to come on the journey and become a supervisor? And that was a good call.
Yeah, and it's good to see people that you've taken through that career. And then what led you to make that jump? Because you moved from that large corporate environment to a startup. Why was that?
So I got involved in a medical device company, and I was the first employee of a company, but I didn't own it in any shape or form. And I had to design and build a sterilising plant. And that still runs in Scotland. It's the one that does all the medical device startups use it to sterilise equipment. And I got involved in that, and that was my first kind of directorship position.
So was it to make that step change in your career, or what drove you to want to do that?
Kind of fell into it, I think.
Okay.
It gave me that good experience of, basically we grew that to 16 people, and I was leading it.
But you did that from scratch?
Did that from scratch, yes. So keys to the door and no desks, no phones, nothing. So I've done that a few times in my life. Doing it again on Tuesday.
We're going to get to that.
So yeah, that's an interesting journey.
Okay, and so you'd been working in a more startup, earlier stage startup environment. I think you mentioned something about a flower shop at some point as well.
Yeah. My ex-wife and I had a flower shop. We grew from zero to £250,000 in 2 years.
Yep.
Nightmare.
So you've been in other sectors too.
yeah, definitely. Retail, not ideal. Not my thing.
Okay, let's move on.
I used to end up delivering flowers because somebody had to do it.
Well, we'll move on from that then. So tell us about Cascade. You're one of the co-founders of Cascade Technologies. Let's go right to the start.
Right to start.
How did that come about?
So I'm dropping my kids off at school one morning, and it was very quiet. I was a consultant at the time. I'd kind of gone semi-independent, just doing my own thing. And I'd done some work with Photonic Materials, which was a tech startup. And this was about December 2002, and I met, I used to drop the kids off and then go for a coffee with all the other mums, which seems a bit strange because I wasn't doing much.
It's networking.
It's networking, absolutely. And somebody said to me, "What are you doing today?" I said, "Don't know, I'm going to go back home and see if the phone rings," because it had stopped ringing. And one of the girls said, "Oh, you need to speak to my friend Jill Macaulay." And Jill Macaulay ran the Strathclyde University Incubator at the time.
Jill Macaulay spoke for us before it started growing.
Right, okay. Well, I've known Jill a long time. So I went to see Jill in December, and she said, "Oh, you need to meet this French guy. He's just trying to get a company off the ground, spin out from Strathclyde University." I said, "Okay." So I met him on the 10th of January 2003, which happened to be the day the company was formed, and we kind of gelled, and we then, he said, "There's another guy I need to get involved in this company," and that was us. From about the March 2003, there was 3 of us involved in the company, and it kind of ran from there. It took us nearly 18 months to get our funding together, and we raised about £1.1 million funding in May 2004, and that got us up and running, and we were based at the Strathclyde University Incubator, and we went from 1 room to 7 rooms quite rapidly before we moved up to Stirling.
And how would you describe that sort of founding team? Have you got any advice for people that might be looking for co-founders or thinking about
We were very close, and we had very similar views and a similar work ethic, and we were joined at the hip. We used to be known as the 3 Amigos, because wherever we went, we were always together. I remember the chairman finding out that the 3 of us were out in the car looking for a property, and he said, "What the hell are you playing at? The 3 of you out looking for property. One of you should be doing it." But that was the kind of thing we were. We all wanted a piece of the action.
And did you have similar skill sets and backgrounds? Or
So we had different skill sets. My other 2 co-founders were both physicists, and I was the mouth, basically. Initially, it changed over the piece, as you'd imagine. But I was initially the person that had the contacts in Scotland and knew Scottish Enterprise, had been through the grant funding side of things. So that was where my skill set came.
Okay. So on the commercial side.
Commercial side, yes.
Okay.
But you had to learn the technology pretty quickly and convert what was very, very heavy science into something that your customers might understand.
Yeah, how to articulate that.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fascinating. And so, obviously, you talked a bit about the growth of that business, and we'll talk later about where that went to. But building the business, did you have an exit goal in mind all the way through? Did it go through different stages?
We were going to be world dominating in what we were doing. And
very ambitious.
We were meant to, and that was very, very important. That we showed ourselves to be bigger than we actually were.
So, any tips? How do people do that?
Well, I'll give you an example. In 2011, we went to a show in the US, and I think our budget was a significant budget, more than we could ever imagine spending previously, and we got 110 leads. We didn't sell anything from that show, but we sold the company. And that was strategic. We went there with a big stand, and all our competitors, because there were competitors in the laser space, but they all had small 3 metre by 3 metre stands with the little curtains that you get in these big shows in America. And we turned up with this massive custom-made stand. We had 5 working analyzers. The whole thing was fantastic.
So you did an outlay for that, but it was with a
Pardon?
view. You did an outlay for that.
Yes.
It was with a view to.
With a view to selling the company. The timing was just right to engage with the people we're trying to sell to.
So before we get to that sale point, where did you take the company to? How many people did you get to?
So when we sold it, or just before we sold it, we were about 40 people. So that was probably about 2011. We went through a few ups and downs, as you would imagine. It's not all plain sailing. There's a lot of 2 steps forward and 1 back at times, but mostly we're going forward.
Was that 40 people in Scotland, or?
We never had any employees based anywhere else.
Okay.
At that time. Yeah, it was all in Scotland, all in Stirling. So we're based Edinburgh, Glasgow, all locally, but very international people. We had lots of different international people working in the business.
Okay.
From all over India, Ukraine.
And what about your customer base?
So 99% out with Scotland. We hardly sold anything in Scotland.
So it was an export business?
Yes, we sold a little bit to exported to England, but not very much. Most of it was exported further afield.
Fantastic.
And even at the time we sold the business, we'd sold pretty well in 5 continents.
Okay, and I'm not going to ask specific figures, but it was a good exit.
It was a good exit, and it was still the biggest exit from Strathclyde University. The biggest exit Strathclyde has had to date.
Okay, and we're not going to talk numbers, but it was reported.
It was reported in the Glasgow Herald wrongly that it made 40 million. It wasn't that far wrong.
Okay. And so, from that, was there any, it sounds like this journey that you went through, and it was all to plan and everything went as planned, but
Perfect, yeah.
is that really how it
No.
was? Was there, no, obviously
No.
we might have prepped this question, but was there any challenges or any sort of ups and downs on the way that you could maybe share with us?
Yeah, huge numbers of ups and downs. Cash being the biggest one, and my old boss, my mentor, he always used to say cash is king, and that's what you need to worry about every day. Now, we used to run out of cash, I can't tell you how many times. We ran out of cash, and I remember one time being asked to, I was the sales guy, but I was being asked to manage the cash because we had a big payment coming in, but it would be about 6 weeks away, and we were going down at a heavy rate of knots with our spend, and I had to get on the phone to the supplier base and negotiate terms on payments for everybody, including PAYE and HMRC and everybody, and really negotiate. And I think that was where my negotiation skills really came into their own, because I don't want to say how much we owed, but it was a number of hundreds of thousands of pounds of money we owed, and I had £30,000 to get us through the next 6 weeks. And we just had to find a way and discuss and agree payment plans with everybody that we could. And you knew that your life depended on it, because if we didn't get there was probably at the time, I can't remember how many people at that particular time, it might have been 20, 25 people dependent on the fact that we didn't get a lawyer's letter coming in to put the company down, because it only takes one, and we had to stop that.
And what would you attribute that to?
Tenacity.
Tenacity.
Just tenacity.
Negotiation.
Well, negotiation skills, yes, but tenacity.
Because you knew that it was going to get to that point.
It was going to get to that point. I remember speaking with Duncan Logan of Rocket Space recently, and he was saying that small tech startups are like lambs. He's a farmer, and he said they just try and find different ways to kill themselves. So I quite like that one.
What advice would you have on a kind of personal level? Because that's a lot of pressure.
It's a huge amount of pressure. I don't know how I dealt with it, to be honest, because I went through a divorce, I was building a house, having more children. I just don't know how you managed to get through it, but you just seem to take it in your stride and get on with it.
It sounds like tenacity and resilience are quite
Well,
core.
I always say that the three of us from Cascade were battle hardened through the journey, because we'd grown up together during that journey and lived through a lot of grief. So it was shared grief to get to where we had to be, and we all kind of played our part.
So maybe being able to rely on and trust your team.
Yes, definitely that, yeah. You had to be able to trust that if something needed to be done, it would be done. And we were very good at doing that with each other. I say that for myself, they might say something different about me.
So Cascade was acquired and you were continuing to work with them on
Yes.
a consultant basis, but you're now leading a new venture.
Yes.
So do you want to tell us about that?
So just making the step from Cascade, so I didn't have any earn out or anything. I could have just left, but I didn't. I felt a responsibility to give the new owners what they paid top dollar for. So I continued working in a sales role for them for nearly a couple of years. And then I decided that I didn't really like the big corporate world. So I resigned and I worked as a consultant for them for 18 months. And during that time I was looking for what's the next thing, and I was restricted. I wasn't allowed to do anything to the gas analyzers or lasers or things like that, so I was looking for something different but still highly technical. And probably a spin out from a university, but serendipity has a lot to play. So I met Dave Hughes, who I met him probably just about 2 years ago this time. I think it was April 2 years ago, and he's co-founder of Novosound, and he had just won a phase 1 grant from Scottish Enterprise to fund the first year of a 2-year project. It's called the High Growth Spin Out process.
So we don't mind me asking, how did you meet him? Because there might be people wondering, how did I meet him?
I was networking. I think that's the fair thing. I'm a kind of quite good networker, and I knew the places to go and speak to people, and one way or another I was put in touch with them. And we had a coffee at the University of West of Scotland. We met in Glasgow somewhere, I think, and we hit it off pretty quickly. I mean, he's a young guy, really keen, really focused on what he was trying to do from a technical perspective, but limited in the business knowledge, and that was what the high growth spin out process was for. Scottish Enterprise put it together to link people with experience with people with tech. So that's what.
Very complementary.
Yes.
Okay.
So David was another physicist, very good technically, and I was good commercially, and relatively good proven later on at the fundraising. So we kind of got joined at the hip, I suppose, fairly early on. Neither of us are interested in football. I'm not interested in music, and he is. He plays in a band. He's not particularly interested in cars, and I am. So I don't really understand why it works. But we were in America in October, travelling around for 2 weeks, and we're still talking at the end of it, which is quite surprising. Well, I'm still talking to him. Maybe he's not speaking to me, but I think he is. He's probably listening here. I thought he was. So yeah, it's all quite interesting how that dynamic has worked.
What does Novosound do?
So Novosound is, I have to say, it's always good. I chose the name. He bought me a cup of coffee. The thing's coming.
It's okay. Just a slight technical difficulty here, but we'll be back in a second. So I was just asking what Novosound does.
So Dave bought me a cup of coffee for choosing the name. And Novosound, the name Novosound is new sound. So ultrasound has been being used for 40 years, and it currently uses a ceramic material. So people will understand the ultrasound for babies when they're using it for that. Less people will know that ultrasound is also used for non-destructive testing in the industrial space, for looking for porosity in welds and cracks in pipes and erosion in pipes in petrochemical refineries and things like that. So there's an industrial space for it, there's a medical space for it, and I suppose the strapline for Novosound eventually will be MRI quality images at the cost of ultrasound. So instead of having to pay £1 million, £2 million for an MRI machine, we anticipate in the not too distant future having an ultrasound machine that's maybe 10, 20,000 pounds. When I first met Dave, the project was called the Dental Ultrasound Project. So it was about replacing X-ray in the dental surgery with ultrasound, and that's still on the cards. But when I got involved, I realised that, and we had long discussions about this. I suppose we all realised that it was going to be expensive and time-consuming to bring a medical device to market in the ultrasound space. So what we did,
A dental device.
a dental or medical, but it was going to be expensive and take a while, and we'd probably struggle to get funding to do that. So we engaged in the industrial space to find out what a lot of the problems were in that space, and it became very apparent that again, the ultrasound in the industrial space has not changed dramatically for 40 years. So
it's right to be disrupted, I would say.
Yes. So our new material is, we start off with an industrial scale or industrial quality of foil, and we place a material on top of it using a proprietary process, and we create something similar for the ultrasound that is very complicated to make conventionally, and we can make it very simply, and we can print it in sheets and print circuits onto the back of it, so you don't have any gold wire bonding onto each of these individual elements that you make. So in some aspects, it might cost you £6,000 for an example to make a probe for an ultrasound application, and we can probably do that for a few £100s. So there's a massive potential saving. We've still got a bit of water to go under the bridge to make sure that happens, but the ability and the capability of the team is second to none. A fantastic team we've created. And it's strange to think that 3 weeks ago the research team were still in the university, and they became employees of Novosound on the 6th of April this year, on the day we funded the company.
And you're at that point now where you're positioned for growth with the
Yes,
funding, so you're hiring?
We signed a lease for the new building, or the new offices at BioCity. We're moving in there on Tuesday. We have 6 employees already, and that will grow quite rapidly. The fact we raised twice the amount of money that we had gone out to ask for, I think, is a testament to the capability of the founding team, but B, the technology.
And the opportunity.
The opportunity to people get it, and the key thing is that we've predicated the plan on is that high temperature analysis of pipes in petrochemical refineries. You can't do that with conventional ultrasound material because the material fails at 160 degrees centigrade. We've tested up to 400 degrees centigrade and our material works. So it's a real game changer for that industry. So that's a very interesting prospect.
Fantastic. So I've just got 2 more questions, and they're ones that we always ask. So if you've been along before, you might know them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up the floor, because nobody's taken me up yet on the conversation option. So I hope I'm going to have some questions. I can see some people primed already. But just firstly, looking back, taking us through the journey that you've been on, is there anything that you would call out that you would do differently?
That's what I was going to ask.
Sorry. Beat you to it.
I've thought of that many times. Would have done my career differently, and the one thing I sometimes reflect on: should I have left Rolls-Royce? Because all the people that were colleagues of mine at the time are now very senior people in Rolls-Royce. But I've had great fun. I've had a fantastic time, and I continue to have a fantastic time. I talk about a 40-year apprenticeship because it's only after 40 years of being in industry that you know some of the stuff, and you still don't know half of what you need to know. But I don't think I'd have changed anything.
Okay, good. That's great. And we always ask our guests this. So what would you call out as your top 3 pieces, Richard, of advice? I mean, we've had loads of nuggets already through this, but what would you highlight? My
top 3 are, and I have to attribute these to my old chairman, Jim Cooper. He always said, get the best administration you can get in a company. because that really underpins. And actually, about 2 hours ago, we advertised for our office coordinator, if anybody knows of anybody interested in a new company. So
get your house in order.
Get your house in order, have a proper administration person, because engineers are bloody awful at admin, so get somebody else to help you do it.
And it's the opportunity cost as well, isn't it? It's getting someone else to do the bits that
so there's that.
Get on what you need to do.
Next is run regular board meetings and make sure that they are properly minuted and regulated. We've not done this yet, but get your own front door as soon as you can. If you're going to be bringing people in this is if you're going to be a global company. If you're trying to build a global brand or a global company and bringing people in from around the world, and we're speaking to some of the biggest names in the world already, and we're only 3 weeks old, then you have to punch above your weight, and your own front door really helps. So we're actually going to be at BioCity, which doesn't quite get us our own front door, but it's a pretty good base to be in.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'm hoping we'll have some other questions. Anyone want to start? Yeah, Bruce.
Hey Richard, we know each other well.
We do.
I guess I've got 2 questions on a similar vein to what Lisa just asked. First one would be, what have you learned from the Cascade experience that you might change in the Nova Sound startup? That would be the first one. And the second question I would have is around culture, because you've worked hard to try and help my business sort it. And how did you know you had a good culture at Cascade that positions you to go from small to medium to scale? What did it look like? What did it feel like?
There's a few little things that we did.
So we'll start with the second question. The culture one.
Culture one, yes. There's a few little good things that we did at Cascade on culture. Simple thing like buying fruit. And we saw this from Emerson in the early days. Buying fruit and having that available. It got to the point where instead of buying it once a week, we had to get it 3 times a week. And just having, I never thought of this, but in previous lives, people had to buy their own coffee and stuff. But we just supplied all that, and it was in the noise. You wouldn't even notice it. So having a kind of canteen-y breakout area was, I'm not saying that was my idea, but we did that, and that was a really good thing. Open plan offices is another one. I'm very, very strong on open plan offices. Dave, if you're listening, I'm just saying that again. Open plan offices are really, you can't justify what benefit they are. I took walls down in Rolls Royce when I was there in 1992, and it made a huge difference to the operation. And previous to that, people were in their little ducats. And when you go around companies in America, and talking about the old traditional companies like GE and some of the others, they've still got the little ducats that people sit in, and I find that horrendous.
What difference does it make?
It's communication. Unwritten communication. You're overhearing somebody on a phone call, which might be a problem because they've got something in your ear, somebody else talking, but the benefit far outweighs the negatives. And you just have to make sure you have enough breakout areas or meeting rooms. They're more important than offices. Offices are just for a bygone era.
Fantastic. So I think you had 2 parts to that question. So is there anything that you've taken
That you would change?
That you would change from what you did before?
Startup with your vast experience.
I think it's important, and all the little tips that you read about are all about culture. Getting the culture right from the beginning. If you don't get the culture right, you'll not grow a big company or a successful company. You might, but it's a lot easier if you get the culture right. So in Novosound, we are very, very aggressively trying to make the culture right. I'm not saying we do it right all the time, but we are trying to do it right.
But they say that, don't they? Whether you think about it or talk about it or not, you have a culture.
Yeah.
And it's whether it's the right one.
So what you want to do is don't create a vacuum that's filled with what you don't want. Actually positively think about what you do want. Dave's just spent a week on the Silicon Valley Accelerator over in California, looking at what Facebook and Google and all these other big companies were doing, and came back with lots of ideas. So we're just going to try and do our best to create a culture.
What elements from that can you take and
Pardon?
make, what elements from that can you take and work for you?
Well, I think something that I mean, I remember we used to do them at Rolls-Royce. We'd stand up meetings in the morning, but they were different in 1996. I mean, it was before computers and stuff. Now you can do stand-up meetings online with Slack and other software media, and we use a lot of that now. We're already using Slack, which a lot of companies use now, and it's a very good interactive tool to use, and we've certainly benefited from it. It's a struggle for old-timers like me to start using it, but we're kind of beginning to get there.
He's bringing you along, that's great. Is there any other questions, hopefully? I've got two, so we'll start with Gerard.
Yep. Hi, Richard. Thank you for your presentation. I'm going to ask a very self-centered question, but I've got to ask it because I think it's very relevant here for your experience with Cascade and probably for your future experience. IP, which role did it play at Cascade? And if you can tell a little bit, maybe also for the exit strategy, whether it played any role in negotiation. I understand that some maybe.
Okay.
There's a question about
so I'll talk generalities about how I see it, because I don't want to talk any specifics. Absolutely 1000% crucial. Because if you're trying to sell a big company to a big company, what are they buying? They're probably not buying market share, because you're a tiddler. They're buying your intellectual property. One of the things that we negotiated with the University of Western Scotland was the IP being assigned to Novosound on day one. We had to meet a certain trigger to get to that. But one of the things strategically we sat down probably a year, 18 months ago, was we sat down and said, what do we need to do to get the IP into the company? Because in another company, we had to get the IP from the university halfway through, and that was a challenging negotiation. And it was far easier this time getting it. Knowing where the end point was, we did it sooner. But it's absolutely crucial to get the IP right.
Fantastic. And we had another question here.
Yeah, apart from Slack and stand-up meetings, what other tools and techniques are they using in Silicon Valley that we should be using over here?
So just for
I wasn't there, it was Dave that was there.
Just for the recording, the question other than Slack, and what were the other types of or recommended tools and techniques from Silicon Valley?
I think they have breakfast meetings where they have breakfast and then have a meeting. So that encourages people to get there in time, especially in the modern culture where not everybody is in the office.
So free food.
So free food helps. Yeah, that's basically. And maybe having a one day a week where you do a lunch and supply that lunch. So again, you get people having a chat over lunch.
And that gets people.
No such thing as a free lunch in this world.
And that gets people integrating and talking as well, which you said about the open plan offices.
Yeah, the open plan office is probably the main thing. I didn't know this, but Dave was telling me that Facebook have got a 1.5 mile long office and it's all open plan. Apart from Zuck's office, which is a glass fishbowl.
So you don't want to set up in the middle of London to do that then?
No.
Okay.
Just to sort of complement that, what sort of techniques have they got for encouraging creativity and creative work?
Yes, so you weren't at the Silicon Valley trip.
But I can talk about that.
Okay.
You want to
Good. No, please
yeah.
do.
Okay, so in my career I've been to some of the most amazing R&D facilities around the world, because when Cascade was selling its technology, I got into the most amazing places, and I can't talk about some of them, but one particular one sticks in my mind. I can't tell you where it was or who it was because I'm not allowed to, but I think modern day it would be like Google, where they have big breakout areas. And I remember they had all these ducats around the wall, and they had sticky tape and pens and staplers and all sorts of different things. And it was really to try and create the ability for people just to make stuff out of stuff that was on the wall. So for inventors to invent stuff, and there were all these funny triangular chairs and really relaxing, soft music type places. It's maybe not the Scottish way, but it's it was quite eye-opening at that time.
Just stimulating
And
creativity.
yes, just a creativity kind of space.
Okay, so we've got a question at the back. Yep, that's you now.
Yeah, I found that a lot of startups, once they start getting a bit of money in, they start employing like a finance director and non-exec directors, and then they run out of cash because they're paying all these guys. Is that a good or a bad thing, or?
Okay, so
So it's about your cash and your run rate.
the way the tech startup game is now is you have to do those things. It comes with the territory. If you're going to raise chunky money, you've always got a boss, even if you're the chief executive. You're always going to have a boss, and that boss will be the investors, basically. So you're always going to have somebody on your board that you're having to pay for to look after their money. So it just comes with the territory. And the boards can become very unwieldy. So you have to try and manage that as best you can. I won't go into the details, but we're trying to manage that this time around a little bit better than the last time. Time will tell whether we're successful at it. But you tend to find in the early stages, everybody wants a seat at the table and on the board. You're paying for some of them as the company, and some of them are doing it just because they're doing it. But it comes with the territory, and you end up with far too many people around the table. But you have to manage it.
Okay, I think we've got time for two more questions, and then that'll be us. So we'll start with Anne, and then we'll go into Michael.
Hello. I wanted to come back to a comment you made. Somebody made a comment to you. Startups, young startups, small startups are like lambs. Okay, what are the top 3 or 5 things as a young startup, small startup you shouldn't do?
So I'll just repeat that for the live stream. What are the top three or
5.
Let's say 3. What are the top 3 things as a young startup that you would say not to do? And that's based on maybe the quote that you said before about startups being like lambs.
So I think you have to manage the cash. Most companies go bust because they run out of cash. I think nowadays we all know that, but I suppose 20 years ago it wasn't quite as well thought through. So managing the cash.
So don't overspend.
Yeah, and the other thing is getting the right team in place. If you get the wrong team in place, it can be poisonous. So you have to get the right team. And I'm trying to think of a third one.
Any tips on how to
Proper diligence.
Yeah.
Don't just pick up somebody that somebody said to you, why don't you get that guy? He's quite good.
Yeah.
That just won't work.
And you talked before about a diverse co-founding team and maybe people knowing their strengths and knowing their gaps.
Yes, and you've got to. There's no point in having 3 of you doing the same thing. So you've got to complement each other somehow or other. So cash, the team, and the culture. I think getting the culture right. If you get the right culture, the sky's the limit, really.
And you've given us some good suggestions on that already, so that's good. And just a very last question, we'll move on to Michael.
I think the last time was quite a good last question.
Oh.
I was going to ask, you mentioned about the dental technology for, it sounds like you're raising money on the back of the industrial. I think that dental thing will ever happen.
Yes, yes. So what we've done is we've planned to get the company to break even, hopefully, on the industrial side. We have a number of other projects that we're looking at, and the dental one will become part of that. Because we raised a lot more money than we'd planned, we've agreed with our investors that we're going to focus on accelerating the medical side of the business, so medical dental side of the business, so that we're better prepared when we go for our next round of funding, which we're planning in 18 months' time to do a fundraise, quite a significant fundraise. You're never off that treadmill Well, if you're trying to grow a business quickly, you can't do it just growing it internally. You have to go out and get extra funds. So that's what we're going to do. But time will tell.
Okay, well, I think, you know, in terms of questions from the floor, we're going to mop that up now, but Richard, hopefully you can stay around for a little bit. You know, so there'll be a chance to maybe catch up afterwards and ask any questions. But I would just like to firstly just say a huge thank you, because it's been so insightful and I've learned loads, and I'm sure we could have covered lots and lots more because it's been so much material. Thank you so much. This is just a small,
thank you very much.
Just a small thank you for us at Startup Right. So thank you.
Thanks very much.
I'm just going to invite my co-director, Marlene, who's just got a few words to say, and then you can have another drink.
So first of all, thanks to our featured attendees. So we've got, Gerard, I'm always going to get your surname wrong.
It's French.
In about 3 months' time, I'll get it, from Scintilla. Then we've got Nick Cohen from PCR and Biz Anywhere. Is that right?
Yep.
Yeah. William Seymour from Skill Mill, Michael Ellis from Ellis IP Limited, and Andrew Johnson from Andrew Johnson as well. So a bit about our sponsors and our partners. First of all, thank you to Product Forge that have come on board and are filming all of these. So they've all been live, and we've had feedback on Twitter, which has been amazing.
We'll make sure the link is circulated if anyone wants to revisit any of the insights.
Would also like to thank Brewgooder, who have come on board as with us as well. Yeah, that word. So hope all of you really enjoyed the Brewgooders as well.
For a great cause.
Yes, very good cause. Then we've got, so Scintilla provides patent and trademark advice with a particular focus on the tech sector. They're friendly and approachable and always happy to have an initial chat without charge. So you know who to go to now. We've got ESS, who are specialist recruiter based
so we've got Bruce here.
Yes, right. Glasgow and Bristol. Their core sectors are food, drinks, FMCG, is that right? Yeah. Energy and high technology. As part of its commitment to supporting the growth of startups, it offers discounted fees to all startups and is always on hand to coach, mentor, or advise startup businesses.
Couldn't say it better myself,
I did my job right then.
She does her research.
Then we've got Gillespie McAndrew. Did I say it right this time?
You did, yes.
Yes.
We got Chris at the back there.
And they're a full-service law firm that offer a wide range of advice. And then lastly, we've got 4Bytes, which is an outsourced software development company. And they aim to help people make good decisions about solving problems and creating innovative software solutions. So thank you to all of our sponsors and our partners that make this possible.
Fantastic. Thank you, Marlene, for that. And we will be back again, as we are every last Thursday of, well, for next month, the last Thursday of the month. We'll be back here at Codebase, and Marlene is going to be taking a turn on the stage to host next month. And we have Dee Bradbury, who is the VP of Scottish Rugby, speaking for Startup Friend May, which across the globe, so all the international global chapters have female leaders speaking, so we're celebrating female business leaders, which will be really exciting, and that's a real role model that we've got along. So I really hope we can welcome some of you along back to that. And we're just going to mop up again with another fantastic round of applause and thank you to Richard, because it's been so good.